Hey, what's up? Good evening. You're listening to another episode of Taking the Over. I am your host, Gunn, joined as always by the T-Man among boys on the official sports wagering podcast of Boot Crew Media, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Joined this evening with our special guest, a return guest to the show, has been on the show previously. Good friend of the pod, former, I should say, a fellow Boot Crew Media talent, the one and only Chris Rosvoglou of the Straight Up Saints podcast, and several more credits. Chris is growing more credits every couple months, so I don't even try to get into your credits, Chris, because I'm gonna leave stuff out. I know you've got a damn good institutional Saints podcast. You're one of my favorite content talents out there, and I'm just so thankful that you've taken some time to join us to talk to us today, specifically and only about wagers involving the New Orleans Saints.
I'm excited. I'm super excited about it. I remember last time we did something like this, a lot of Jameis talk. Unfortunately, those plans got a little derailed from the ACL injury, but I'm excited. We'll see what's going on with these futures bets.
Yeah, these futures bets are going to be great. It's going to be futures bet, and I even went so far as we could just talk. We can kind of recap some other Saints bets as well, because this, I feel like, and as you know, I'm a well-tenured degenerate, and T is too. If you're going to place futures bets, and we don't like to even really refer to them as bets, we like to think of them as little investments, right? These are little Jameis IRAs. These are little Mike Thomas mutual funds that are going to take us about 13 months to mature, right? Sound investments, safer than Tesla stock right now. Is some of the stuff that we're going to go over today.
You know what Warren Buffett says? Whenever a recession happens, you want to buy physical assets and futures props. It's on his Bible.
Yeah. Property and overs, reception overs is what I believe Buffett's actual words. There's a lot of good stuff out there, and there's a lot of good stuff at the Saints, and sometimes it falls through the cracks. I mean, we obviously are huge Saints fans. You are probably as knowledgeable about the Saints as a very small select group of people walking the planet. So it's very, very possible. It's not too crazy to suppose that we might be a little smarter than Vegas on some of these things. Would you agree with that, Chris?
You know what? Let's just say yes for today. Let's be in the optimistic mindset and say yes.
We're smarter than Vegas. That'll be the theme today. We're outsmarting the books. We're outsmarting the bookies. We're smarter than Vegas. So, honestly, I really feel good about some of these. The thing about these futures bets is they take discipline because they take a lot of time to hatch. These bets will not pay until the end of the regular season, in some cases, the regular NFL season upcoming. And then the other piece of it is I really like to get these bets in right now before preseason, before mini camp, before training camp, I should say, starts. Because worst case scenario, let's say we bet on Jameis Winston to throw for however many yards. Worst case scenario as a Saints fan would be Jameis blows out his knee in training camp, right? Suffers some kind of catastrophic injury. That would not affect our futures bet unless he takes a snap in the regular season. So you're safe from catastrophic injury with these bets, but to me, some of these numbers, I want to jump on them and I want to take advantage of them before, quite frankly, everybody sees that our guys are not, they're better than these numbers would reflect, and that's what I want to get into today.
Didn't someone come out with an article today pretty much ranking the Saints in the bottom third of the league?
I don't read those articles. I didn't see that.
So, okay, well,
I saw a tweet from a well-tenured defensive end of ours that he called the Falcons. What did he call the Falcons yesterday on Twitter?
Well, you said well-tenured, so I'm guessing you're not referring to Marcus Davenport. So,
no, I'm referring to his platoon mate on the other side.
Falcons is usually a favorite. I don't know.
No, he didn't call them the Falcons, man. He called them dirt pigeons or something. It was strong words from
yeah, I'm looking now. Yeah.
Pro Athlete. I'm looking it up
Dirt
too.
pigeon. Yep.
Dirt pigeons. He called them the dirt pigeons. I like that. I'm gonna start calling them the dirt pigeons.
It's like not even like it's not even really creative. It's just like purely disrespectful.
I like that.
Yeah,
I like that. A future Hall of Famer. Chris, you ready to get in and talk about the Saints? Talk about these futures bets? All right, let's do it. We can't start any discussion of Saints futures bets, and a lot of these bets that we're going to talk about today are going to be player specific. We're going to backtrack though to a wager that we've talked about on this show in previous months. Once this line came out, that I am just red hot for, and that is the Saints win total. The Saints win total as a team for the regular season, and that number has been bouncing back and forth between 8 and 8.5. And just about everything we're going to talk about today, of course, is coming to you via DraftKings Sportsbook. Of course, use promo code BOOT on DraftKings, and great things will happen in your life. But 8, the number is flexed between 8 and 8.5 total wins for the Saints. Of course, coming off a 9-win season last year when they could not have suffered more injuries. We had guys playing quarterback that may never take another snap in the NFL. We lost probably 2 or 3 games due to not having a kicker. There was a game against Miami where we were out of 22 players to COVID, and we still managed to win more games than what Vegas is saying we're going to win this year at either 8 or 8.5. Now, if you get it at 8 flat, you can push if they only win 8 games, but you're typically going to get some odds with a little bit of juice on them. I saw it as high as minus 135 today on DraftKings. If you find it at 8.5, you're going to find it with a little bit of positive odds. I found that in another book today at plus 105. Chris, do you think one of our smart futures, one of our smart investments for these next 13 months is taking the Saints to win over 8 games?
Yeah, I think it is. I think when you're making any of these type of bets, you have to feel like, what your gut telling you. And honestly, you got to put everything into perspective. And the Saints won 9 games last year. And that is with Jameis Winston going down October 31st. That is with Michael Thomas not playing a single game. That is with Ryan Ramczyk missing, I believe it was 8 games. That is with Teron Armstead missing an equal amount of games. That is with Alvin Kamara missing significant time. That is with Marcus Davenport getting hurt, Peyton Turner getting hurt, Quan Alexander getting hurt. Like, you just go down the list. That all happened. You didn't have Will Lutz. I mean, there's so many, and I'm probably forgetting even more when I list the amount of people that missed time last year, and they still won 9 games. I know the counter argument would be, well, that was with Sean Payton. Sean Payton's gone. But look, I know the coaching staff's going to be a little bit different in terms of DA running the show, not Sean, but they're on paper, they're more talented this year than they were last year because most of their talent last year didn't play due to injuries, and they still won 9 games. So I feel pretty good about that. The Saints are the type of team where I feel like if they play up to their potential, I have a hard time seeing them not go 10-7 or maybe better. So if I'm saying that, then I have to hit and hammer the over on 8 or even 8.5 because I feel pretty good about them getting to at least 9.
T, have you placed this wager yet? I know when we spoke last week, you had not yet.
Yeah, I don't have too much discipline or patience for season-long futures. I did place this one when we talked about it the first time, when it was better odds. So I feel real confident in it, right? I mean, everything Chris said. You take the same team as last year, then add in healthy Michael Thomas, healthy Jameis, Jarvis Landry, Chris Olave. I mean, there's numerous names that were not on the team last year that in theory should improve. I don't really put too much stock into the Sean Payton thing because for the most part you have the key players there still, Pete Carmichael and Dennis Allen, so there shouldn't be much of a culture shift. I think Dennis Allen's going to do things his own way, which will probably help us. To be frank, Sean started taking his little let's be creative and cute game to like a whole new level last year and made a lot of bonehead calls, a lot of bonehead decisions. So also the fact that he's talking about potentially coming back next year or the year after that for a different team. So F. Sean Payton, I already forgot about 2009.
I'm with you too. F. Sean Payton, let him go to Dallas. Let's get some first round draft picks back.
Yeah, I mean we control his contract, right? It's like control his rights.
The Saints front office is in control here. They own the rights to Sean Payton. Anybody that wants to hire Sean Payton must go through us, and the Saints must okay the compensation. And it's and Mickey is on record as saying it ain't gonna be cheap.
Yeah, I mean, why would it be? You have, like you said, you hold all the cards, you have all the power in the situation. So why start to what happens? You know what I mean? Like, what happens if you don't get anything for him? Okay, great, you stay retired. Like, it doesn't help. There's no benefit to us to let him walk.
Well, somebody's going to have to give something to get him, and like I said, it's going to be everyone's being pretty clear about what teams they believe it is. I don't know. I don't want to talk about Sean Payton too much because honestly, he left us, and it wasn't to retire. It was. And now maybe that is the troubling thing. That what did he see something? Did he know something? I mean, like, he had ultimate control here, right, Chris? I mean, there's really what other than just ready for a new challenge. What did Sean see something scary on the horizon? I don't think it was. I don't think, Sean, there was no reports of Sean not believing in Jameis or having any kind of big conflict with anybody in the front office about major decisions regarding personnel. He had carte blanche with this franchise.
He did. I mean, look, I think there's two ways to look at it. There's one way to look at it. He just literally wanted a fresh start. Like, you're with the same team for about 15 years. It maybe gets a little bit repetitive. You need to go somewhere else, whether that's Cowboys, Chargers. Like you guys, I don't really care necessarily where he goes. I just care what the Saints get back in return, but that could be part of it. I don't look at it like he was like, oh man, I can't win with this team, because like we just said before, they won 9 games. Their team was depleted. And then the years before that, they were rattling off 13, 12 wins, 11 wins like it was nothing. So I don't really think that was a problem. Sean Payton, for the most part, was a perennial winner on the Saints. I think if there is maybe one concern, maybe he looks and says, hey, I don't know about this quarterback situation. But even that, I don't even know, because think about it. Russell Wilson was available for trade. Deshaun Watson, the Saints were in the sweepstakes before he went to Cleveland. Whether it's being aggressive via the draft or maybe going after a guy that Sean liked back then, Baker, maybe he would have done that if he was here. I'm not saying those are the moves they should have made, but even if he was concerned about quarterback, like you said, he had so much power, he can change that if he wanted to. So I just look at it as the last couple of years have been very grueling and very tiresome. And for a guy like him, who is a veteran coach, he's been through a lot. And whether it's the heartbreak losses or just going through COVID, because the way the last, I'd say, 2 seasons have been constructed, it's been a lot. Like, it's not easy in terms of them going through the protocols and stuff like that, especially 2020. And then remember, Sean's had COVID twice already. So I think for him, it makes sense that he just kind of wanted to reset and recharge. I don't in any way, shape, or form look at it like, hey, I don't know if this job's good enough, because why would he highly recommend and get Dennis Allen the job when they're boys if he thinks it's a situation where, hey, DA goes in and this whole thing's just going to, kind of implode on him? I don't think he would do that at Dennis Allen. He respects him too much. So I wouldn't worry about that at all.
I agree. Let's get into some of these players' futures. All right. Starting at quarterback, and we have limited opportunities to work with here. What you're going to find is, due to the uncertainty regarding a link of a suspension coming Alvin Kamara's way, there's virtually no Kamara numbers out there anywhere. All right. The DraftKings Sportsbook has the most robust selection of player futures overall, but even they have very, very, very little on Kamara. The only thing they have on Kamara is an offensive player of the year at plus 6,000, which I think they're just throwing it out there. And they also have him as an MVP chance for plus 10,000, but I think they're just taking sucker bets because a guy's going to miss 3 to 6 to maybe more games based on that. So let's start at quarterback, and let's start with Jameis Winston. The Jameis Winston total passing yards number via DraftKings Sportsbook is over under 3,750 yards. The over on that is juiced down to minus 120. The under on that is plus 100. So the books, DraftKings at least, is somewhat telling you, we're thinking he may hit this over. We're incentivizing it less. We're making it the favorite of these two opportunities. Also, while DraftKings does have in many ways the superior quantity and offerings of different player futures, I did find another book out there in FanDuel that had a slightly better number. Is he only has to cover 3,600 passing yards there at a -112 over line there. Chris, what do you think? Do you think Jameis, a guy who the last season that he was healthy, starting a full season, he threw for over 5,000 yards in a 16-game season? You think 3,600 or 3,750 is going to be a challenge for him?
I don't necessarily. I really don't think so. I think that's another one where I feel comfortable about the over, and I'm not even going to look at, let's say, the 2019 season where he had the 5,000 plus yards. I'm actually going to date it back to his first 2 years and look at a guy who was first 2 seasons in the league, still kind of getting used to things. 4,000 yards, kind of almost on the money for both of them. So if you're telling me he's got to get just 3,700 or more than that, I feel pretty good about that. I've been saying for the last couple of weeks, actually even said it yesterday when I was talking about some type of Jameis projections. I feel pretty good about like 4,200 being a really good number for him. And even if we drop that down to just 4,000 straight, again, I'm hitting the over on that. I feel really good about it. And I think that we'll see the Saints, especially now that they have better receivers at their disposal, be a little bit more explosive through the air. They didn't do that last year, but I think that I feel good about that over.
The touchdowns total, and I'm more of a yardage guy than a touchdowns guy when it comes to a lot of these player futures, because touchdowns have more of a luck feel to them, even though, I mean, quarterback is different than I think a receiver or running back. Jameis's number on TDs, on touchdowns, via DraftKings Sportsbook is over or under 26.5. And again, this is one situation where if you go and you shop around a little bit, you'll actually find a lower number of only 25.5 over at another book. You think he's got another 30 plus TD season in him, or what are we going to see here?
If I'm going off what I was saying yesterday, and I had to stay true to my word, I told people that in an ideal world, I see Jameis Winston having 4,200 yards with 30 touchdowns and 13 picks. That's kind of like the stat line that I like for him. And the reason I like that stat line, it's a very Ryan Tannehill, Tennessee Titans version-esque stat line. And for a Saints team that I think wants to play, I would say complimentary football, but also being a little bit more explosive, that's a good number for him. And then again, I look at it, 14 touchdown passes last year through 7 games. I'm doubling that. Let's say that gets me to 28. And then that would still leave me with a couple of games left over from last season. So just going off that, I don't want to, start, saying that it's over for everything. But for Jameis in particular, I feel like the numbers are almost a little bit too low. And I think that's also because of last year, because the Saints weren't that explosive and they were very, I'd say, conservative offensively. I think there's an opportunity here where if the Saints do air it out more, and I kind of expect them to do so, you can get really good value here. So that's another one where I kind of like the over.
I agree with you there. I'm going to move on to another player here, and this is where this one was really giving me. This one really made my head spin when we move over to wide receiver and we start looking at wide receiver yards, because my actual pick of any of this, the wager that I would feel most strongly about, involves Mike Thomas, right? Michael Thomas. And so what's crazy about these is, like, even looking back at the Jameis one, it's basically assuming that he's healthy and plays 17 games. You're saying, I mean, you can almost put that asterisk on anything that we say here, right? And that same asterisk is applied to all the assumptions about these wagers. All of these lines are built assuming that a player is going to play a 17-game season, right? So when you get to the receiving yards options, and we scroll on down to Mike Thomas on DraftKings Sportsbook, and you see that the over-under for receiving yardage season long for Michael Thomas next year is over or under 801.5 yards. The bet is juiced to -115, both on the over and the under. So they're not necessarily trying to push you in any direction. Looks like they're trying to keep casuals that are just tossing money around everywhere off of this one, because it is juiced a little more than a standard line would be both ways. But it's funny, Chris, I was listening to your podcast from yesterday where you were kind of talking about Mike Thomas and Jameis a little more in depth, and you made a fun point on. You were like, what if Mike Thomas is only 75% of what Mike Thomas was the last time we saw him play a full season? And you were like, what? He had 17 yards receiving. And you're like, I can't do the math. I'm listening in my truck. I pull out my phone. I'm driving across the causeway, taking my calculator out and doing the math. And that's something like 1,200 yards. If he's 75% of who he was the last time he played a full season. And this number here is 800 yards. That's just insanity to me. I was telling T earlier today, I feel like Mike Thomas could miss 8 games next year and still hit this number.
Well, Chris Olave's number is 719.
Right.
Do they really? That to me is telling. I don't know what it's telling me, but that's bizarre. Like there's something going on here.
Chris, are we missing something? Is there something that we're not catching here, dude?
I don't think it's that. I think a lot of people are really concerned that Michael Thomas is not going to be close to what we've seen from Michael Thomas. But to your point, again, like it's all a numbers game for me because I look at Michael Thomas every season that he's played for the Saints, healthy, at least 1,100 receiving yards. And that's including the rookie year. 1,100, then it went to 1,200, the 1,400, then the 1,700 on the record-breaking season. The year that he played a little bit in 2020, he had 2 games where he had over 100 yards receiving, and Taysom Hill were the quarterbacks. And he was the quarterback in those 2 games. So it's a matter of how healthy is he. And that's why I'm towards the side that, I don't think he needs to be 100% to be an 1,000-yard receiver. And now you're telling me I really only have to really get 800 plus. That makes it a little bit even easier because now I'm saying take the record-breaking season. He's got to be 50% of that to hit your over. 50% of 1,700, you're still cracking that number past 800. So I feel really good about that. I think, though, a lot of people are concerned. And the reason being is his ankle injury is not a normal ankle injury. Usually you don't mess up the interior of your ankle the way he did, as bad as he did. And because he ended up delaying surgery and all that, it only made things worse, which is why the rehab process was so bad. But you're talking about a guy who the last couple of updates on him have been good. Like when Ian Rappaport comes out and tells you that he's about to be cleared and everything's good, and this was about, I'd say, 4 days after Nick Underhill kind of hinted that everything he got from the Saints on Michael Thomas was positive, I think he's trending in the right direction. My only question is, how much time does he miss if he were to get injured again? That's my question. If he re-injures his ankle, how long is he out? But if you're telling me he's playing, let's just say 12 to 13 games this season coming up, I'd be stunned if he doesn't get at least 800 yards. I would be stunned. He's just too good of a player. And it's not even just that he's too good of a player. He's one of those guys that doesn't matter if he's a rookie or a 10-year vet, offensive player of the year, whatever. He's always playing with a crazy chip on his shoulder. So I would just be stunned if he doesn't hit that number.
Do you see an issue, though, or a potential issue? Because this is my thought on this number. It's a different quarterback, right? So past few years, it's been Drew Brees, Taysom Hill, whoever. A lot of slants. They call him Slant Boy for a reason. A lot of shorter routes. Do you think with the new change of guard, with Pete Carmichael taking more control, and with Jameis, who we know has a big arm, they're going to take a lot more shots down the field, which might not necessarily be his sweet spot?
I mean, it's possible, but even then, I think for the Saints, they know what he's so good at, and I think if you're going with that offense that isn't let's say the most explosive thing in the world, it might actually be better for Jameis to maybe limit the amount of deep balls you're throwing and kind of focus on that intermediate to middle range. And I think when you bring up the quarterback thing with Michael Thomas, the thing I always look back at, and the sample size isn't huge, but the 5 games he played with Teddy Bridgewater, they actually aired it out a lot more than I thought. And every time I look back at it, I keep getting more impressed at how much more, downfield routes Michael Thomas was running, how many more he had of that. And I think for him, it might actually be easier for him to run downfield routes on his ankle than it would be those slants, because those slants are those cutting movements. They're actually not great for your ankle. That's actually the way you're probably going to re-hurt it would be on a play like that. Obviously, you're still going to use them on slants, but I think when you have him doing kind of straight line routes, that might actually be a better thing for him in terms of his health. So do I think that maybe throwing it deep to guys like Olave will chip away at his production? Absolutely. I feel like it's impossible for it not to. But I think of the 2016 Saints, 2016 Saints, excuse me. Brandon Cooks, Michael Thomas, Willie Snead, almost all 3 of them had 1,000 yards. Michael Thomas and Brandon Cooks got over 1,000. Willie Snead just missed it. He was in the 900 range. So even though they do have 3 good wide receivers on this roster right now, and they're in a little bit of a different quarterback situation, I feel still pretty good about it. And even if it does chip away at that number, as long as he's healthy, he's going to do his thing. And I think that if we go back to the one game him and Jameis played, it was Jameis coming in for the 49ers game because Breeze cracked his ribs. They weren't on the same page, but nearly every target that Winston had was going to Michael Thomas. So I'd imagine they'll try to work it out over this training camp period. And I think as long as he's here for the majority of training camp and even preseason, they'll kind of work out those issues.
I think this is a must bet. I think you have to bet this one. I think this has to happen. I think you take like a car payment or something, and you put it on this, and you just take a little, just store it for a rainy day, and you're going to get an 85% return on your money in 13 months. Don't worry about inflation. Don't worry about gas prices. Don't worry about anything. You got Michael Thomas just going to crack 801 yards. That's all you got to do. You in on that? You in on that, Chris? Is this something you? I'm sure you have a lot of smart people in your life.
Hey, I'm someone who from the day he was drafted has been like trying to be president of the Michael Thomas fan club. So I kind of realized it's a kind of crazy fan club, but I'm telling you, man, I'm all the way in on it because he's too good. Like he's just too good. I think it's easy to forget what he did because it's been 2 years since we've seen him play. But if he's out there, I'd be stunned if he's not minimum an 1,000-yard receiver.
Who's the odd man or men out now? Because we have a pretty loaded. We went from having no receivers to having way too many. Well, not way too many, but enough to people are probably not going to make the team or practice squad or trade.
Yeah, I think the guy there that I would look at is Traquan Smith and what he's gonna have to do. I think he's still gonna end up making the roster. I still feel pretty good that the 6 are gonna be, Mike, Jarvis, Olave, Callaway, Deontay, and Traquan. But Traquan's gonna have to prove it because I think Callaway's gotten a little bit better. And that's someone who I've heard has gotten better chemistry with Jameis Winston. So if he's got that down, and let's be real, I think Marquez Callaway is a fine receiver. It's just last year he had to be a number 1 when he's not a number 1 because they had no one there. And Deontay is just so fast and so speedy. And not only that, you could use him on special teams. And Rashid Shaheed, who they thought might end up being an undrafted gem that could play on special teams, he's hurt right now. So Deontay's going to have to, at the minimum, do his special teams role in addition to being a receiver. So he feels pretty safe. So Traquan's got to make sure he battles out some undrafted guys, some veteran guys. And as long as he does that, he should make the roster. And if he doesn't do that, then that's a problem in itself. But I think he'll end up making it because of his blocking skills anyway. But if you're telling me to pick a bubble guy, I'd feel good about Traquan being that bubble guy.
I agree.
Moving on to Michael Thomas, a couple other little opportunities on him. DraftKings Sportsbook has them at over or under 5.5 touchdowns. The over is juiced to minus 120. The under is minus 110. Again, I don't. This one doesn't feel as sure of a thing to me because I'd hate a guy to go out. There's a world that exists where this guy goes out and catches 1,400 yards and only 4 touchdowns somehow because they're just luck or just red zone any number of other variables. I feel could get in the way. I like to stay away from that. And then the third opportunity that you can bet on Michael Thomas in receiving category is Michael Thomas receptions. And the Michael Thomas reception number is pegged at 70.5, meaning basically over under 71 receptions on the season. And both of these lines are juiced just as the yardage is at minus 115 either way you go. I feel like there's an opportunity there as well, but this yardage one just jumps out all over the page.
5.5 touchdowns is low, though. I mean, just say Kamara misses 6 games.
Yeah.
What do you think's getting the ball?
Well, I think Kamara missed the Saints 6 games, and also Kamara. We do have Ingram, and I guess Tony Jones Jr. and
then the kid from Baylor. What's his
guy
name?
from Baylor that played running back for a year, but I get the feeling the Saints are going to air the ball out a little bit this year, out of necessity or not, and so that brings us over to the other wide receiver option that you'll find on DraftKings Sportsbook. You will not find Jarvis Landry, which is a little bit frustrating at this point because I feel like Landry's really going to be the guy that turns the heads this year. I feel like Landry's going to be the guy that comes in and really takes people's breath away. I think out of the gate, I think he's going to be almost like assuming, or maybe if Michael Thomas isn't 100% week 1, that Landry could be that safety net, that warm blanket for Jameis out there in the position. But curiously enough, there's a number on Olave, of course, the rookie wide receiver drafted in the first round. And as T mentioned earlier, his yardage number is 719 and a half, 719 yards receiving. The over on that is juiced to minus 125. The under on that is minus 105. They've got Olave at over or under 4.5 touchdowns. So you're saying the rookie's going to come out and catch at least 5 touchdowns if you take the over. The over is even money at plus 100, and the under is juiced up on that 4.5 to minus 130. Chris, what's your thoughts on rookie Chris Olave? I'll say this. Of all the various first-round wide receiver options, he felt to me like the best day one unwrap it. He's ready to go straight out the box.
I would 100% agree with that assessment. I think he kind of, not their game, like I don't think they have the same game, but he reminded me of Devontae Smith in the sense that, like, send him to the league. Don't worry about whether or not they can handle it. They're going to handle it from day one. And I think that a lot of it comes down to what's going to be the target share of these three. Like, I'm so fascinated to kind of see how it goes down. Like we talked about Mike before, but the reason I feel confident about Mike, even if he's on the field and there's three of them doing his thing, it's just because he's kind of the big dog out of the three. Like, I expect him, because he is Michael Thomas and because he is the most accomplished and the most talented out of the three, that he'll get his share of targets. Olave is interesting to me because he's the guy that I might feel really comfortable about in terms of the big plays, and I could see him having a lot of splashy touchdowns this fall. The yardage thing is interesting. I've kind of been tinkering on the idea of him being a 900-yard receiver this year. But the problem is now I have to kind of do the math in the sense that, hey, if I put Michael Thomas at 1,000 and I put Olave at 900, what's going to Jarvis Landry? Or are Landry, Olave, and Thomas all having minimum 900 yards? And then we have to accept the reality that just the tight end room's not doing much, which is possible. It's not a very talented tight end room.
There's no tight ends to throw the ball to.
There really isn't. Like, that's part of the problem, and then again, the 17 game part factors into too. I think that's a big component of all these. So I think if I'm going to stick with my original prediction, I still think that Olave is kind of a 900-yard receiver this year, which would put him on par with what Devontae Smith did in Philly. And I think that's kind of a fair number. And actually, crazy enough, I don't know if this is a bold prediction or anything. I kind of think Olave will finish this year with more touchdowns than Michael Thomas. That's just something I kind of feel like right now. And I don't know if that's because I think Olave is the better home run hitter in a sense on deep plays, that he'll kind of mesh well with Jameis's big arm, or if I just think Olave is going to benefit off Mike getting maybe the tougher coverage looks. But that's just something I feel right now about Olave.
T-Man?
It's to stay away for me. I think I just don't see value in a rookie without knowing. I mean, I haven't seen him play down yet. Like Chris said, you kind of you have an idea of what you're going to get with Michael Thomas at a minimum for the most part if he's somewhat healthy. With Chris Olave, he could be outstanding, he could be bad. I don't think he's going to be a huge numbers guy in year one.
I'm gonna agree with you on the stay away point here, and let me explain something to Chris. That I'm not disagreeing with anything that you're saying. I think what you're saying is right on line. But if we may have shared this with you before, I have like 2 gears of gambling, right? I have like, this is going to win. My feelings are hurt if it doesn't, because I'm smart and I put a lot of work into this, versus like, let's go smash a 5-way MLS parlay on a Saturday night in July because there's nothing else to do and I'm bored, right? Like, under your scenario, Chris, you're saying I think Olave gets to 900 yards. That's a little close to that 719 number for comfort for me, versus like the Mike Thomas scenario with the 800 yards. I think Thomas is going to smash that. I think there's built-in safety nets on that Thomas piece there, because like I said, he could miss 5 games easily and still hit that number, 6 games and hit that number. I agree with you on Olave's success, and I think my opinion is right in line with yours of where he's going to end up. And like T said, he could end up with more TDs. TDs just seem like a wild card, But as far as like this would be more gambling to me rather than just like, my little Mike Thomas IRA where I'm sticking my money.
Do you want a really high ROI pick?
Oh, we're getting to some high ROI picks. What you got? You talking about Olave Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year at plus 1,200?
Better odds. I got plus 20,000. Chris's boy Marquez Callaway to lead the league in receiving. Plus 20,000.
Oh, that's
it's an option.
You put a nickel on that, and by that I mean a literal nickel, not a 50. I put 5 cents on that.
What would you say the likelihood of that happening, Chris, is?
Oh man, if that happens, then Olave, Jarvis Landry, and Michael Thomas all got hurt, which is just a nightmare scenario. But you know what? Don't
try to justify this.
I'm not justifying. I'm not going to justify it. But it is funny enough. Callaway did have, I think, close to 700 last year. So I'm curious to see what he ends up getting this year. But no way. I'd throw just for fun. If I was in the mood of burning $1, I would throw $1 on that. But I'm just not in the mood of doing that.
Did you say MVP? Or did you say Offensive Player of the Year? Lead the league in receiving.
It's an option. I had to really.
That's very plausible. That's plausible. I'm behind that. I'll match Chris's dollar. We'll both put $1. Well, at plus 20,000 odds, T. What was $1 pay? That's still going to pay you like $200, right?
Yeah, I was looking for Michael Thomas. I was looking for anyone else on the roster. He's the only option on DraftKings right now on the Saints to lead the league in receiving. Maybe Chris Olave's there. Chris Olave's there at plus 10,000.
Because they're scared. They're scared of Thomas and Olave. They're picking on Callaway.
Thomas isn't an option, so that to me backs up the over 800 because they're not even offering that. They probably.
I wish there was a bet. Clearly, DraftKings Sportsbook is afraid of the Saints receiving core. Why not a bet someone from the Saints receiving core to lead the league in receiving yards this year?
Michael Thomas plus 5,000.
There you go. They're not scared after all. Next bet. This one I don't even like this one. This honestly, I wouldn't know what to do with this. Jameis Winston interceptions thrown. Whew, this one really tears me up. The number sits at 13.5. Meaning if you take the over, it's 14. If you take the under, it's 13. And it's juiced to minus 110. Standard VIG both ways, over and under. And this is where it's weird to me. I mean, obviously, I'm not touching this with a 10-foot pole either way. But, I mean, in my world, Jameis can throw 15 or 16 interceptions this year, and we still, like, everything still be fine. You know what I mean? No worries. So I don't get upset. Like, that one's weird to me. I mean, it seems like a higher – and that's also, I think as T might have pointed out last week, that's close to like a Baker Mayfield number.
Outside of our safety net of Jameis Winston fandom, people think he's a real piece of shit skill-wise.
They really still do.
Like, outside of, for some reason, and I know it was a small sample size, but I thought last year did a lot for me personally to make me feel a lot better about him leading the team this year. But outside of
question about leadership. The only question is his knee, and I don't even see how people outside of New Orleans can still question his leadership. There's just too much. He's put in too much work since he's been here. You know what I mean?
He's a 30-30 guy still, like to them, which is bizarre to me because that was years ago.
That's crazy to me. Well, there's a guy we could have on the show to talk about irrational Jameis hate. T's close personal friends with that guy, Chris.
Yes.
T hangs out with him.
Comes to family Thanksgiving, actually.
Comes to family Thanksgiving with T. T had that guy on his podcast. It was T's most downloaded podcast of all time.
I think it was. It was. He's an interesting guy. That's all I got to say.
He is interesting.
T was a real guest whore.
You got. I'm getting clicks here. You got to sling them any way you can. Impressions don't come easy.
There's somebody else you had on your show. I ain't gonna mention his name either.
That was a dark time. Probably my biggest regret in my life.
In current company, T was Chris. When I tell you, in fact, I got a bone to pick with T. I'm gonna jump straight over to another bet, and I have to, Chris. I have to give a. What do they call it these days? It's like a trigger warning. I'm giving a trigger warning, and I'm telling you, I'm issuing a statement before I say anything further. I do not agree with the views espoused by my co-host on the football abilities, character, leadership, or awesomeness of one Tyrann Honey Badger Matthew. But you can go out and you can get the interception numbers of how many interceptions made. Both Tyrann Mathieu and a guy that you dedicated a whole podcast to here very recently, Marshawn Lattimore, are sitting at over or under 2.5 interceptions. We know Lattimore did 3 last year, and he's topped that number at another point in his career. Obviously, Tyrann Mathieu has been as advertised. I know one of the fun things on Saints Twitter and Twitter right now is everybody going nuts over the Madden ratings that come out, and what is it? Kamara's the 7th ranked running back, and he's a 90 overall, which, to be honest with you, and I've been playing Madden since like y'all were in short pants, that's not a bad number. That's not a bad number for running back. And looking at things relatively, and I can even wear my crazy Homer hat and tell you that, I don't think it's crazy that Kamara is a 7th running back in that rated in that game. But to give you an idea of how complimentary the numbers can be, Tyrann Mathieu is the number 1 rated safety in Madden. And I was talking to somebody online today, and I was saying that fuck the Madden ratings. These overs, when Vegas puts a number on something, that's the real, that's where the real belief is. They're telling you what they think about Jameis Winston. They're telling you what they think about Michael Thomas. They're telling you what they think about Tyrann Mathieu. I just wanted to say that because I know I could never apologize enough for T's. Would you believe, Chris Rosvoglou, that the T-Man among boys does not believe that Tyrann Mathieu is a good football player?
I didn't say
to this day.
This is a little bit of a stretch, paraphrase of what I said.
This isn't an opinion he had years ago. This is an opinion he has today.
Just, in Madden, they do weekly patches and updates with updated rankings. Just watch his number is going to decline throughout the year. That's all I'm going to say.
He can't stop. He can't help himself.
I gotta own it at this point.
He's got a real problem. He's got a real problem, Chris Rosvoglou.
I hope he proves me wrong. I just don't see I don't see what everyone else sees, I guess.
Chris, would you mess with those interception numbers on Lattimore or Honey Badger?
I'm gonna if I were gonna pick one, I maybe would mess with Lattimore just because I think he had 3 last season, and he really should have had like 5 or 6. That broken thumb or whatever it was just forcing him to drop a bunch of easy interceptions.
How many games did he play with a cast on?
It was like the first 2 months of the season he had a cast on. So and there was 2 points during the Giants game where he had like a blatant interception and he just couldn't hold on to it because of the cast, which is understandable. I get it. So if I was going to mess with one, I think I would mess with Lattimore. I wouldn't mess with the Honey Badger one. New scheme, new team, so many DBs. That's the other reason why I really don't want to mess with it anyway, because you have Lattimore or Debo, PJ Williams, Bradley Roby, CJ Gardner-Johnson, Tyrann Mathieu, Marcus May. Then you have Alontae Taylor, the rookie. Who knows what he's going to bring to the table? For the first time in a long time, the Saints are loaded at DB, which is great to say. But
you don't want to see BW Webb out there trying to make plays? Or
no, I'm good, man. I'm good off the BW Webb Sterling Moore days. I remember I used to wake up and hope Sterling Moore was active for the game, and then we'd have a chance.
Hope that Sterling Moore is active.
That's
y'all never lived with Fred Weary. Y'all never lived in the Fred Weary days. Dude, we drafted Alex Molden instead of Eddie George, okay? You remember the name Alex Molden? No, but you've heard of Eddie George before, haven't you?
You could do any name. I think the secondary from 2005 to 5 years ago was just an interchange of new names every year. They had friggin' Jason David out there. That was their big offseason signing that one year, and just got lit up in week 1 immediately.
Comeback player of the year. This is an interesting one. Comeback player of the year. The Saints have 2 of the 4 top options on the board in Jameis at plus 550 and MT at plus 800. Chris, one of those guys could very easily win. If things go as they need to go, the Saints, as Saints fans, we're going to need either at least one of Jameis or MT to have a good season next year. We can't, as Saints fans, accomplish our goals and have both of these guys just not come together, injuries resurface, whatever it may be. you feel okay about. I mean, who do you think would have the better chance? I mean, just breaking this down, if both Jameis and MT have great seasons, comeback seasons in this quarterback-driven league, and granted, now Mike Thomas has broken this mold before in that he was voted Offensive Player of the Year. What do you think, man? Who do you think would get Offensive Player of the Year out of those two?
I mean, I have to go Jameis because A, it's the quarterback spot. That's the popular one. But B, it just makes more sense. Like, I think Ryan Tannehill won Comeback Player of the Year. And I keep saying Ryan Tannehill, but like it's the logical stuff to go to right now.
Right.
He won Comeback Player of the Year in 2019. And it wasn't because he got hurt. It was actually just because he got benched with the whole Miami situation. They almost gave it to him almost like a, hey, you bounced back, not really like came back from an injury. But he had 22 touchdowns, 6 picks. That's not like that's a nice like conservative stat line, but that's not like the best stat line I've seen in the world. So I just think for Jameis, the road is easier for him than it would be for Michael Thomas. Like if Michael Thomas wins Comeback Player of the Year, that means Michael Thomas probably looked like Michael Thomas of old, which is amazing. And honestly, if Michael Thomas looks like Michael Thomas of old, then Jameis Winston's probably right in the thick of things for Comeback Player of the Year because who's going to get those passing yards and passing touchdowns from Michael Thomas's success? That'd be Jameis Winston. But I just think for Jameis, it's not like, if let's say MT's not playing every game, he still has Jarvis Landry. He still has Chris Olave. He still has Alvin Kamara. Like, I think he can make things happen. And if Jameis Winston finished off last season where you doubled his passing yards, you doubled his touchdown interception ratio, and he finished the year with, let's say, 3,500 yards and 28 touchdowns and, like, let's say 10 picks. If Joe Burrow wasn't Joe Burrow, I think Jameis Winston might have been in the consideration, let's say, for a Comeback Player of the Year. Although last year was tough anyway. You had Dak Prescott, you had Nick Bosa, you had other really good contenders anyway. Yeah. So I just think the safer money would be on Jameis.
I've been hearing rumors now that Taysom Hill is moving, or they pretty much banned him from the quarterback room, however you want to phrase that.
He's a tight end. Tight as H-back.
I've heard rumors now that he's moved there. They're going to use Andy Dalton in his old role.
If I see Andy Dalton on a QB draw, I think I can.
Quarterback sweep right. Andy Dalton, 37 years old.
Just Dalton executing the Taysom Hill playbook.
Getting obliterated.
Jesus Christ. Let's get a couple more of these and get out of here. One last player prop. The only offering for Saints defensive player sacks is Cam Jordan. Over or under? I wrote 9.75, but that can't be possible. That's just on me. That's a me thing. That number is obviously 9.5, but I wrote it down as 9.75 as if he was going to get 3/4 of a sack. Oh wait, no, that could be it because you can get half sacks in the NFL. Right. Yeah, that's why it's 9.75. It's a half of a half. Huh, look at that. Oh, okay, talked my way all the way through that. The over on that is plus 100. The under is minus 130. I almost feel like when I was a kid and watched football, I was obsessed with sack numbers. I feel like I followed sack numbers obsessively. And now as an old man, I mean, I can't tell you anybody's sack numbers from last year. But sack numbers used to be the first thing I flip over the back of a football card and look for. And today, it just doesn't seem like it to me is the glory stat. You can do so many other things. But Chris, what do you think about, from a gambling perspective, putting some money on Cam Jordan here at 9.75?
I don't really feel good about it for one reason. Cam Jordan had 12.5 sacks last year. 8.5 of them came in the last 4 games of the year. The weirdest thing happened was Cam Jordan got COVID. He broke his streak of consecutive games played, and he came back and he looked like the best version of Cam Jordan I've ever seen. So I don't know how that even makes sense, but you look at what he did the last 4 games of the year: 2 sacks against the Bucks, 2 sacks against the Dolphins, 3.5 against the Panthers, and then 1 sack against the Falcons. Like, he was just terrorizing teams left and right. But that's over the last 4 weeks of the year, the last 4 weeks of the season. If that version of Cam Jordan's playing a full year or even half of a year, he'll break this no problem. But I can't rely on that. I'm just kind of thinking about what we saw from him early on in the season. That kind of concerns me, but I still think he's going to be a good player for the Saints. So I don't see this as one of those, I think he's going to fall off a cliff. But if he ends up having 8.5, 9 sacks this year, that still puts me under. And at the same time, I could see him going nuclear for a 1-month stretch and breaking it. So I really don't feel good about this one. So for that reason, I wouldn't really be bullish about it. but it's just fascinating to see the way his season played out. Which version of Cam Jordan do we get this year? I really don't know.
To me, he's only as good as the defensive line around him. Like, he plays much better when Marcus Davenport's playing better because he gets easier rushes. We've seen it before when Trey Hendrickson was there. Those two in the end were very good and complementary of each other. And a lot of Cam Jordan sacks, I remember, because Trey Hendrickson would bull rush or get around his guy, kind of force the quarterback Cam Jordan's way. If Davenport doesn't play well or is hurt, if Peyton Turner, I forgot he was even on the roster, if he plays not like if those guys don't contribute, I feel like Cam Jordan then plays worse as well.
Yeah, I think that's certainly fair. And to your point, which goes into this whole thing, if Marcus Davenport stays healthy, this will be the year that he has double-digit sacks. I know it's one of those biggest if he stays healthy stuff. This will be the year for him. And I think he would be the top pass rusher on the Saints if he is healthy this season. Again, big if.
This is the number for him. This is the year for him to get paid, right? This is the year for him to go out and show out.
Yep.
God, I hope he's healthy. Man, I hope he's healthy. Didn't he lose a finger or something?
He did. He had a part of his finger amputated.
Goodness gracious.
Worked for JPP. Why wouldn't it work for him?
That's true.
JPP. Chris, what's going on with Peyton Turner, dude? Where in the world is Peyton Turner?
So he's healthy now. So we will see him next week. Like, he's actually cleared. He's ready to go. They don't even have any concerns about like whether or not he's going to be ready for training camp. Like, he's been cleared a couple of weeks in. So that's good. But it's just so crazy how everything unfolded. Like, he played that one game against Carolina. I think it was like week 2. Even though the Saints lost, he looked really good. And then I feel like we didn't see him the rest of the year. And to make it worse, that was a pick that Saints fans didn't really like. So when Saints fans don't like a pick and they don't do much rookie year, it just kind of validates their feelings. But he's a talented kid. And I think he's actually, in terms of his skill set, he's further along than Marcus Davenport ever was through his first 2 years. So it's a matter of, can this kid stay healthy? Now, if he stays healthy, Saints might have a nice kind of, three-headed monster at defensive end. Again, all big ifs, but maybe Davenport plays the first 8 games and, Turner plays the last 8 or something. Maybe the Saints can work out something with their injury, their schedules. Who knows? But he's ready to go. As of now, he's ready to go.
That's, and I was going to say, even though he was not a popular first-round pick, he does kind of feel like an invisible man. Like, it almost feels like Saints fans don't shit on him as much as they have other guys that have. But Davenport, for example, early Davenport's career, everybody was on Davenport's case. It feels like Peyton Turner is getting a pass because of all the other awesome fan service. This has basically been the summer of fan service to Saints fans. We got Landry, we got Matthew, everybody and so people aren't out there with torches and pitchforks, coming after Peyton Turner. Would you agree with that?
They didn't trade 2 first-round picks for him either, which is probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, there's that.
I mean, people literally called Marcus Davenport 2 firsts.
2 firsts, yeah.
And then on top of it, people thought they were going to draft Lamar at that spot, which I never thought they were going to do, but some people did. And you factor all that in, someone's got to get the blame. Unfortunately, it happens to poor Marcus.
That's so funny. Okay, division total wins. That number is 3.5. Of course, we went 4-2 in the division last year. I know I've listened to you. You agree with me in that you're not very confident in either the Falcons or the Panthers next year. But there's a better opportunity for betting on, some certainties this year. The Panthers are going to suck. The Falcons are going to suck. They're just bad. Obviously there's some bias in there. I've got my fan hat on, but they're really, really 2 shitty football teams. I think that this could be the season that the Saints win our division again over the Bucs. But there's a bet that you can make over on DraftKings Sportsbook, Chris, that is Saints Bucs to finish top 2 in the division, any combination. I like to lovingly refer to it as an exacta box. That's what you would do at the horse track with this. -115. Saints Bucs to finish up top, any combination, -115. That to me has a Michael Thomas 800 yards over certainty level attached to it.
Yeah, I'd say that times 10. Like, that's how good I'd feel about that. And it's not like me being, a homer and ripping the other teams. It's just like Atlanta's roster is a rebuild Marcus Mariota, you don't know if he's going to be the starter the whole season. Their best wide receiver got suspended because he was too busy looking at DraftKings Sportsbook. So, I mean, that he's out of there. So you factor in those. Their defense isn't that talented. And then Carolina's got to figure out who's going to be their quarterback because Darnold and Baker are going to go at it. And if Baker loses that quarterback competition, God help them. So, I just think the Saints and the Bucs are in much better spots, and whichever one comes 1 and 2, we'll see. But yeah, that one feels really good. Out of all the bets you've mentioned, that's the one tonight that I like the most.
You like that more than MT over?
I actually do like that more than MT. As much as I like the other MT bet, I think this one I like a little bit more.
I like this bet so much that I want to wager enough money on it that like if I lose, it hurts me. I want to put like 30% of my net worth on this.
I like that bet a lot more like 3 months ago. I don't know. For some reason I told you I have a theory that Tom Brady's going to have a major fall off.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he thinks that the Brady's drugs are going to stop working this year, and they go to shit. I mean, I think a couple when everybody goes around and talks about the usual suspects of shit teams, and I think T kind of sold me on this last week or sometime in the past. Detroit could be the one that kind of jumps up in their division and shocks some people. I really feel like that could happen. I see no scenario where either the Falcons and for completely different reasons, or the Panthers jump up and go, oh, we're going to finish in the top 2 here.
They're 2 of the top 5 favorites for worst record or to go winless on DraftKings.
Yeah, there's a reason. They get that low Madden rating from Vegas for a reason.
I think the Falcons beat the Saints week 1.
Well, the week 1 line is out. And Saints are 4.5 point road favorites. Chris Rosvoglou, our last bet of the night. We can go ahead because I don't think we're going to get you on between now and the very beginning of the season. So I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for coming on. You're my favorite guest, probably T's favorite guest as well. Do not hold his honey badger hatred against him.
That's not hatred. I will be the first person to say I was wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I just don't see the I get the LSU love, but other than that, I don't see the fascination with him as a player at this point.
We haven't made it to training camp, and he's already admitted that he's wrong. Which I like that. I
said there's a possibility I could be wrong.
Chris,
let's do a little side bet.
Yeah, we'll get to that next week. Chris, we are thankful. We're thankful for your time. I know we went way over what we were supposed to talk to you about, but I guess it just happened organically. We are going to be hosting an open, we want all of our friends to just, how they have pick'em leagues and stuff. We're going to have a pick'em league where everybody gets 5 units a week, and you just bet 5 units, and it resets every week. And we're going to track it in an open source like Google Doc online. Any interest in jumping in on that? You want to participate?
Yes,
There's no
yes,
fee.
Sir.
And I want to get people like you. I want to get people that people recognize and have fun with. And it'll be and more so than anything, I've talked about it in previous weeks. I'll talk about it in weeks to come. It's also going to kind of teach people how to gamble the right way, because every week we're going to re-zero it. Every week you're just going to start with 5. You're just going to start with 5. You're just going to start with 5. So, we look to participate in that with you. We thank you so much for coming on. Week 1, Saints versus Falcons. Saints are 4.5 point road favorites. Chris Rosvoglou, what you got on that?
I think I'd actually bet the Falcons there spread wise.
Okay.
I hate division games, and I hate division games week 1 because you never know what you're going to get, because the Saints, I can tell you for now, aren't going to be the team that we see week 1, 2 months after that. So, and for the Falcons, I feel very good about the Falcons being worse down the stretch after week 1. But for that game, even if the Saints were to win, it's probably, if I had to guess, around a field goal. And that's kind of how those Falcons Saints games have been for a while. So I'd probably go bet on the Falcons.
Win, don't cover.
Yes.
Win, no cover. And whereas T is over here going fucking dirt pigeons, money line.
I'm not taking that. I'm obviously going to root for the Saints with all of my heart, but the Saints suck week 1 historically up until the past few years. I just feel like they always have that. They always have a crappy game. It's usually towards the middle or the end of the year. I think they start slow and then hit a rhythm week 2 or 3, we reel off a few games in a row. But for some reason, they always have that one really tough game against Atlanta the past few years. So in Atlanta, I don't know. We'll see. It's also July 20th. They've got some time to figure it out.
Not that much. We're 50 days away. Get ready. Get ready. Chris, thank you so much for your time. We love it. We'll have you on soon. We look forward to participating in the Taking the Over challenge with you this year. And say goodnight to all the beautiful people listening.
Good night, everyone.
All right. Y'all have a good one. T, later on. Gun, his kisses and hugs and loves, and we'll see you all next week. Bye.